So what we're going to talk about now is we're going to talk about branding. We're going to have a look at why branding is important to your business, what it does, what it means, how it's perceived, and all the various factors that we need to consider for the actual brand ourselves. So what we're talking about is a brand is it's an identifying trigger for an organisation. Okay, it's a set of differentiating promises that link a product or service to the consumers or to the marketplace. Its function is to stimulate loyalty and long-term financial returns. So what that means is obviously it's the recognisable part of your business. People understand what it is. They sort of get a bit of an affinity for it. Obvious brands that we might talk about out there. It could be Nike, it could be Apple, it could be a whole range of organisations like that. And when we say the names, people automatically start to associate certain things with that. So to some degree, what we're looking there for is we're looking at it's a value offer. So a value offer is the combination of the consumer's mindset and the communication of the brand's value. And that determines the value of the proposition. Okay, so what we're looking for there is the brand value, okay, and what the consumer perceives of it. The better the association with consumer satisfaction, the higher the brand value. In other words, if your company has a reputation for meeting the consumer's needs and for providing good quality products, obviously the perception of your organisation is going to be higher, and therefore you can actually start to charge a little bit more there. So that's what we're talking about with a value offer. Okay, they understand what they're getting for their money or by doing business with you. What we start to look at there is very perceptual. Okay, so it's the mindset of the consumer with regards to the product or the service that you're offering is deemed the perception. So how they see it is the perception. The perceived value of a brand is relative to the association a consumer may experience in satisfaction with the competition. So what we're looking at there is they're looking at how do they find dealing with you over dealing with one of your competitors. Okay, so if your brand is known to be very good, very efficient, and it always works, or the quality is always very high, and your competitors maybe not as much known for that, then obviously your brand is going to have a higher value, and that's certainly going to enhance what you've got there. It has a strategic function, okay? So it has a strategic function as well. And what we mean by the strategic function is that it's the intangible asset that creates value for the investors. Okay, so if your brand is known to be popular, effective, etc., and more people want it, obviously that has value, and investors are going to get a better rate of return on their investment. Okay, the management of the brand is to provide the strength and value of the marketplace. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to continue to influence a market by being known as being a high quality brand or positioning ourselves where we want to be. And eventually, the brand may be associated with performance over time. Okay, and we certainly know that some brands or some organisations, businesses, have a reputation for high performance, high quality, those sort of things where they're actually moving well past their competition. Okay, so brand is an important factor for differentiation. Okay, so the brand itself, it's an important factor when we're considering the augmented components and their value. We've talked about augmentation in our product offering before. There was the core product, the actual product, and the augmented. When we talk about augmented product, obviously we're talking about the aftercare service or the follow-up or whatever it happens to be that your brand is known for, not just the product, but everything else associated with it. So the way we create value is to create a better brand image. And the greater the strength of that brand image, the higher a price that we can start to charge and command. Obviously that has business implications there because we can charge a higher premium for our product. Okay? The other point about branding is it's about positioning. And what we're talking about with positioning is we're talking about where we're locating the brand, where it makes contact with the consumer and the marketplace itself. Okay, so how do we want to go into the market? Do we want to be seen as an exclusive brand, a high quality brand, a middle of the road brand? Where do we want to be? Okay, so the way we position our brand or the way we sort of consider our brand is going to end up with our position in the marketplace. All right, so our positioning, it's also about a combination of different products and services under the one brand. It's called a brand experience. Okay, so as an example of a brand experience, I might have my iWatch with my Apple mobile, my iPhone, I might have my iPad, I might have my laptop, I might actually then also encounter the customer care. All those items interlink. I can go down to the Genius Bar. Okay, so it's talking about my whole broad experience with that organisation. Okay, I've got multiple devices, I've got multiple things that I'm using, and that gives me a brand experience because all of those products come together to create that value. The other thing the brand does is give me credibility. Okay, credibility, we're starting to go there to reputation. So credibility is the ability for the product or service to be delivered to the consumer with little or no variation in the quality. Okay, so that I know that every time I buy from that brand, I get the same thing. It's a little bit like McDonald's. I go along to McDonald's, no matter where I go in the world, if I order a Big Mac, I get 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, pickles, cheese, lettuce, onions, and a sesame seed bun. Doesn't matter where I am in the world, the Big Mac recipe is always the Big Mac recipe. And aside from maybe the quality of the lettuce, it's going to be pretty much the same product. Okay, so the higher the credibility, the higher the consumer loyalty. As I say, if I always know that when I buy that brand's product, it comes out of the box, I know exactly what I get and there's no variation, it just simply works, obviously that starts to build a lot of that credibility with my customer, and builds it with me. So that's a high point there. We start to consider also equity. Okay, when we're talking about that, we're talking about the value of a brand, okay, the brand association that provides strength. So the equity is the key terms such as youthful, luxury, okay, that we're known a certain way, and the opposite of this is brand blindness. Okay, so we have to think about, well, what are we associated with? Okay, so, Coca-Cola was always, when I was a kid growing up, they had lots of ads, it was all about summer and hanging with your friends and share a Coke and all that sort of gear. And then we saw their later campaigns, it's all about sharing friendship, and it's still a very summery type drink. McDonald's is very family, it's the family restaurant. They kept putting family and restaurant in all their ads, so obviously they were trying to build into a certain area and maintain that. All right, with our branding, we've got different categories that we can go into. Okay, so branding, it does break down. We can have a look at manufactured branding, own label, co-branding, and generic. And as we go through those, we start to think about manufacturer brands. So they're the brands that when you buy it, they have their branding all over it. Okay, they want to be identified as the producers. Brands such as Apple, Calvin Klein, Vodafone, even this pen clearly has Staedtler written on it, whiteboard marker, Lumacolor. Okay, so all the branding's there. I bought it through an intermediary. It would have gone through a wholesaler, a retailer, etc. And I'm the end consumer product, but I know precisely what the brand was. It's written on the pen. It doesn't have anyone else's branding on it. What can also happen is we have own label brands, okay? And that allows for a producer, say Staedtler wanted to produce this pen and they wanted to dissociate from it, for various reasons. It could actually be, they've got a cheaper version of the pen, but they want to make it, but they don't want to have their brand on it, and it might have a different branding on it. It could have Black and Gold, Woolworths home brand, it could be Aldi, it could be anybody, okay? So it can be manufactured, but possibly to a lower quality. So they still get to manufacture, they still get to sell it, but it's obviously done under a different brand. It's done under the brand of maybe the wholesaler or the retailer. We could also go into things like co-branding of our product, which is where two organisations get together and amalgamate to entice a customer. Beats headphones with Dr. Dre, they did the Beats by Dre headphones. We see a lot of that sort of crossover platforming. Intel processor with a Microsoft platform. Okay, so whenever you bought a PC, you'd have Intel inside or whatever it happened to be. So they're co-branding those products because it sort of, it leverages off both crowds there. And then lastly, we have the generic brand. Okay, so they're not associated with any particular manufacturer or producer. You go to the $2 shop, you buy a packet, it says toothbrushes, contains 10 toothbrushes, and you get it for $2. Okay, there's no real branding other than to tell you what's in it. It might have something like shampoo or some really generic type label on it to make it look like a real brand, but ultimately all they're doing is pouring something in the box. Okay, so really that's just there to identify the product, not to infer quality. So you need to think about where you are and what you want to do in your business and where you want to go. Are you going to be, branded the way you want to, or are you going to sell through an intermediary and possibly a different level of product, own brands, etc. And then, and lastly, you can go all the way down to just manufacturing for the generic sector. But that's pretty much branding. So it's the value offer, understanding it's perceptual, thinking about the strategic function you wish to achieve, thinking about how the differentiation's working. It's there as a positioning tool. You need to think about your credibility, building the brand equity, and then what category you want to go into. And that's pretty much branding.